I know there are always going to be some naysayers about a ban list coming out and whether it's a good or bad list, but generally speaking, I think this was an incredible ban list. One of the biggest problems in Yu-Gi-Oh recently has been Calamities and Drytron saying Ben 10 go burr, and this ban list effectively solved both of those problems and any future problems we may have with cards like Utopic Zexal being gone. Surprisingly, Union Carrier's gone too, also potentially solving future problems. But in today's video, I wanted to go through each deck that's currently relevant. I may forget a few, so my apologies if I do, but let's go through each deck that got affected or maybe are going to become more relevant because other decks are out of the meta, and we're going to go through and see where they're gonna be at after this list and give my predictions on this meta as a whole. Before we begin, if you like what you see, make sure to like and subscribe as it helps the channel out immensely, and make sure to like this video and comment down below what your thoughts are on this ban list. But with that out of the way, let's get right into this. So to start, the elephant in the room, Calamities is finally gone. We can all play our favorite deck, and I mean, while yes, Calamities wasn't as effective against a control strategy, generally speaking, Calamities being gone is a big deal. Now, a lot of decks can actually compete against a deck like VW, and we don't have an oppressive floodgate-like effect. Especially now that Utopic Zexal is gone, it just gives us even more reassurance that we won't have to deal with these types of floodgates. And before people comment, Wind Barrier Statue enters the chat. I mean, yes, that exists, but the deck right now currently isn't nearly as insane as you may think. Like, the deck is good, don't get me wrong. Tri-Brigade is a very strong strategy, but I don't think it's tier 1 just yet. I think once we get the new Link monster, the Link 2 that searches a spell and trap, then it's a game changer. But even then, I don't even know if you'd play the Barrier Statue at that point, because the new Link 2 restricts you so much to just Tri-Brigade monsters. Not that that's a bad thing that you don't play the Simorgh Link anymore, but I'm just saying, like, if you don't play the Simorgh Link anymore, that means you're not getting a Barrier Statue. And so generally, I think, especially the fact that Calamities was so oppressive for one of their key reasons being it was paired with something like Virtual World Chuche. That card single-handedly made a lot of cards irrelevant when dealing with that specific Calamities floodgate. Like, for example, if you dealt with a Calamities Chuche board, you couldn't use your own droplets against it, and it just made things so much more difficult. But now, Calamities is finally gone, we can have a little more fun again. Do I think Virtual World is dead by any means? No. I think they will find a way to adapt. The engine is just very strong overall, and because of that, there's gotta be some other win condition. I mean, you have access to, like, Crystal Wing Dragoon end boards, you have Beatrice Turbo. Whatever the case may be, you have a lot of ways to still play this deck, in my opinion, and because of that, we just need to figure out what the new win con is gonna be for Virtual World before they can really shine in the metagame once again. Drytron got arguably even more hindered than Virtual World. Granted, they're getting the new Xyz monster in the next set, I think it's called Lightning Overdrive, and then they're getting the new Xyz, which is just absolutely absurd for the archetype, and will probably make Drytron even more relevant again. But as of right now, they banned Union Carrier, which pre-Xyz monster release, Union Carrier being banned is pretty insane, because it means they just have one less name or less access to Gamma than they did prior, because now I guess you don't have less access, it's more so you just need to draw more Drytron names in order to be able to fully combo. And then Ben 10 going to 1 is also a big deal. While it may not seem like it, this is a big deal in their resiliency category. You may just not be able to be as effective with Drytron anymore, because first off, you do have enough access to Ben 10 for it to still be good, but the fact that you can't play multiple is the key discrepancy here, because being able to search Ben 10 off Ben 10, for example, was huge. It just enabled you to keep pushing, but without that ability, the deck may not be as aggressive anymore. But I could totally be wrong. I just think that this ban list forces players to be significantly more creative with how they're approaching their decks, but not in a straightforward degenerate sense anymore, because, well, the degenerate cards are gone. I do think Drytron will find a way to play the game at least after the Xyz release. I don't know if they're going to be that relevant pre the launch of of the new Xyz monster, but we'll just have to see what happens. At the very least, you can still play Drytron in June or whenever Lightning Overdrive comes out. Next, let's talk about another elephant in the room, Eldritch / Zoodiac variants. Clearly, Eldritch did not get hit. I mean, Eldlands are now like $50, which is absurd, but it is what it is. Eldritch is still a deck, and honestly, I'm not even that mad about it. I think Eldritch is one of the more fair decks in recent memory to be meta. I mean, besides like 2019 where we had Sky Striker and Salamangreat, but let's be realistic here, that was 2019. That's technically 2 years ago. But yeah, no, Eldritch is still viable. Zoodiac is still a very strong engine in Eldritch. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if people just started flocking to Lich variants like this, especially Zoodiac Eldritch, since that's been the most popular Eldritch variant in recent memory. Eldritch Zoo is just, it's untouched, still very strong. It does exactly what it's been doing. I don't think there's much else to say. Other than that, you can probably get away with some other engines if you want to. For example, Invoked gets better because Calamities is gone, and the same with Dogmatica. If there weren't enough elephants, Dragon Link, quite ironic because dragons and elephants aren't really the same thing, but you know what I'm saying. Dragon Link is going to be a tier 1 deck. It's like, okay, I understand where people are coming from. Why didn't they ban LP? But like, the deck is definitely more fair than Calamities. Come on, let's be realistic here. Dragon Link is very strong. Do not get me wrong. It's going to be tier 1 for a reason. But it's not like you're dealing with an entire pop and monster floodgate. You're dealing with like 2 bounces and then a savage negate. I think that's the typical end board if I'm not mistaken. But the key thing to keep in mind about this is board breakers are really strong against Dragon Link. Like, for example, Zoo King Alpha will probably find a way into the meta because you can summon Zoo King Alpha and force like a few disruptions out of the Dragon Link board. For example, if they end on the board I just mentioned, the 2 bounces, one with Heraldic Seal, one with the Dragon Maid Trap, and one with Savage, you're going to force out at least 2 disruptions off that. You're going to be able to go special Zoo King Alpha, go to battle phase, they're forced to bounce with Seal or the Dragon Maid Trap, and then you just special Alpha again, force out Savage Negate. That's at least 2 disruptions. That's very strong. And when you're able to then board break even further, it just gets better and better. To be fair, it's not like as good in some decks, like in Zoodiac variants, it's not as potent because you want to be able to go the battle phase with your zoo monsters to make Zeus. But like, the point still remains, Alpha's an insane board breaker now. It's really awesome to see that it's back in the meta in some capacity. Even if like it doesn't catch on for a while, I'm sure at some point it will be relevant. Next I want to talk about is Dinosaur. It's untouched. I don't know how relevant this deck is going to be. I'm pretty sure Dinosaur is going to come back in the meta. Misk is still at 3. What does Misk do? I probably botched the joke, but that's not the point here. The point is, Dino is still a very strong deck. Misk is a very strong Yu-Gi-Oh card, and that's it. I don't think there's much else to add on that. Lastly, I want to talk about a few of the other strategies currently in the game that could, I mean, well, for starters, like a ton of combo decks just got infinitely better because Calamities is gone. Like, for example, Tri-Brigade is actually going to be very good again because, or at least like it's going to get a lot better now that Virtual World isn't as represented. There's going to be less win decks in the metagame because, again, Virtual World is going to be less represented. And so the barrier statue may just come out of nowhere and sweep some tournaments or whatever. So we'll see how that goes. Another deck is, I guess, Shaddoll. Like, I mean, I did well with Shaddoll at the previous LCS, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Some other decks include, like, Adamantipator, Infernoble are still decks. I don't know how Infernoble, now thinking about it, is going to adapt. I'm pretty sure one of their strongest pieces was Calamities as an end board. Now they're just going to have to go for more negates, it seems. And, yeah, not that that's a bad thing, but 100% Infernoble got a lot worse post this ban list, so yeah. But anyways, I think that's about it. If I forgot any decks, make sure to comment down below. I personally think this was a great ban list. I think one of the key things they needed to do was get rid of all like the floodgate monsters. I think floodgates are an interesting thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! A little side tangent here, but when you get to the point where floodgates become searchable in the form of like you know, calamities. Like, you can just access them through your extra deck. That's just ridiculous. I think in a back row strategy, floodgates are a lot more fair because you have a lot more counterplay to those. But when the monster floodgates exist, it's just silly, you know? I don't know. I think like regular floodgates like Tikaboo, that's fine and everything. They'll come in and out of metagames. But when you have a floodgate that shuts off an entire mechanic, not only will it shut off the entire mechanic, but it's accessible through the extra deck, that's definitely silly and needs to go. And that's why I'm so happy about this list. I think Calamities, obviously, everyone knew it needed to go. And then Zexal, it's interesting to note that Zexal is a card that also needed to go because Lightning Overdrive produces some amazing Utopia support if Zexal exists. And sure, Numeron isn't relevant, but that's not the point here. Zexal could be abused in the future with the new support, and that's why it needed to go. So Konami, props to you. You did a great job with this list, in my opinion. There's going to be naysayers, obviously, but, you know, generally, I think this was an exceptional list. I'm excited to play some Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, and I hope you guys are too. Thank you all so much for watching. Like I said in the beginning, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy my content and want to see more of it. And with that, I hope to see you soon.